Alright, hey guys, so this is Eric again with the Easy EKG video series. I'm just going to do another EKG rhythm identification video. You guys seem to have liked that from before, so we're going to do another quick video here to go over some common rhythms that you'll see. I don't necessarily agree with all of the diagnoses that they give on here, but I think it's a pretty good foundation of the basic rhythms. So I think it'll be a benefit for all the guys out there trying to get this under their belt. So without further ado, let's start here. So remember when we talked about in our other videos what we want to do when you're looking at an EKG. You want to check like your PR interval. Does every QRS complex have a P wave? You want to check for rhythm and then rate, and then PVCs, things like that. So this first one that they're giving us is a pretty simple and straightforward one. There is no rhythm, so this patient would be considered deceased. So up here in these rhythms, so this isn't a normal sinus rhythm. This is not tachycardia. There is no torsades. There is no sinus arrhythmia because there's no sinus rhythm whatsoever. And there's no atrial contraction, so this is just a plain old asystole. And it says that we are correct, so I didn't have any issues identifying that. I would certainly hope many of you don't have any issues with that one. So let's continue. Okay, so again, this is another irregular rhythm. We want to look and see, do we have any QRS complexes? Well, no. Do I have any P waves? I don't see any P waves. Any PVCs? I don't see PVCs. I don't even see a rate. So the main thing you want to look at is what kind of rhythm is this, or what's going on here. So let's see, is this atrial flutter? Well, this looks like an atrial flutter, but with atrial flutter we're going to have QRS complexes, and we don't have any QRS complexes here, so we know that there is no ventricular like simultaneous or coordinated contraction. So atrial flutter, we're not going to pick it. Ventricular tachycardia, well, I mean, I don't see any QRS complexes, so there's no real way to call this a tachycardia of the ventricles because you don't have any coordinated ventricular contraction again. How about AFib? Well, I mean, yeah, it looks like AFib, but again, we don't have any QRS complexes like we would expect to see with an AFib rhythm. Accelerated junctional rhythm. No, this wouldn't be accelerated junctional because there again is no QRS complex. The junctional rhythm comes from the AV junction, so you would have QRS complexes, but we don't see any here. First degree AV block, again, no, it's not that because we don't have any QRS complexes and we don't have any P waves to measure the distance between the P and the QRS, which is what constitutes a first degree AV block when that time is greater than 0.2 seconds. So this is going to be a ventricular fibrillation. And that's correct. Good. All right. Next rhythm. Well, I don't know why the computer's showing us this again, but we just saw this a little bit ago, so if anybody knows what it is, shout it out at their computer, but this is actually asystole. All right, here we go. So we have what looks to be a normal appearing rhythm, right? So we have P waves. We have a QRS complex following each P wave. We have a T wave, which shows the repolarization of the ventricles. QRS complex is less than 0.12, so we can measure it here. So 0.08, so that's a good QRS complex, so we know that's good. But now let's check. The PR interval to me looks a little long, so let's check. So it's from the beginning of the P wave, and that's 0.26, so that is a prolongated PR segment. So if you guys remember what that is, that's constituted as a first degree AV block. And that's correct. So it's not a PVC. Trigeminy is where you have 2 normal beats followed by 1 PVC. That's not what these are normal QRSs. It's not a premature junctional contraction. It's not atrial tachycardia. We have a P wave every so often. It's not pacemaker. We'll get to a pacemaker rhythm here in a little bit. But so this is the first degree AV block because our PR interval is longer than 0.2 seconds. There we go. All right, so this is a little more difficult. So we want to look here and see this rhythm is it regular or irregular? So to me, this looks like a regular rhythm. Excuse me, regular with an R. So let's look at the rate. So remember in the other video we talked about how to figure your rate using the 300-150 rule. So remember that's for every big box you count down. So if we start at this little line right here, we would go 300, 150, 100, 75, 60, 50, etc., etc. If you get down here, that's not good. So you probably don't want to use this calculation because it gets to be inaccurate when you get to the low rhythms or slow rhythms, excuse me. So let's look here. So let's find a rhythm that's right on the line. So let's go with this guy right here. So 300, 150. So this is between 300 and 150. So we'll call it 175 is the rhythm. So that's definitely a tachycardia. So right away we can go out and rule out first degree AV block, second degree AV block. This isn't fibrillation because this is regular, and there are QRS complexes seen here to here. So this could be a tachycardia, ventricular tachycardia, which I think is what this is actually trying to tell us. Supraventricular tachycardia, I don't think so because your P waves are inverted here. Okay, unless this is the P wave here. Let's see here. Actually, you know, polymorphic ventricular tachycardia usually means that the signal source is coming from multiple different locations. I'm going to go with supraventricular tachycardia, and we'll see what they say. That's right. Sweet. So the main reason why I chose that over ventricular tachycardia polymorphic is so just like the same way if you have polymorphic PVCs, they all have a different appearance, right? So some of them might be huge in their QRS complexes, some of them might be kind of small and have a really big negative deflection. This is all the same, so it tells you that the tachycardia signal is coming from one location and one location only. So that rules this out. So the only other thing that's left is supraventricular tachycardia. Okay. So let's see what we have with this rhythm. So what do you guys think this dealy bob is right here, here, and here? You think that's a P wave? Yeah, I don't think that's a P wave. I think it's a T wave. I'm not sure what this little blip right here is, if you guys can see that on your screen. But let's go ahead and let's figure out a rate. Is it regular or irregular? So 300, 150, 100, 75, 60. Okay, so 300, 150, 175, excuse me, 300, 150, 175, 60. So it's around 60 to 70 or so, so it's pretty regular. Is it tachycardic or not? Well, we know it's not because we just counted that out. Are there P waves in front of every QRS? Well, it doesn't look like that. Okay, so we know it's not a sinus rhythm. So let's go up here and let's try to rule out some rhythms here. So sinoatrial block. Well, I mean with an SA block you're going to have an extremely slow rhythm, if any rhythm at all. So it's not an SA block. Tachycardia, well we know these two aren't right because it's not a tachycardia. First degree AV, well we don't have any P waves, so it can't be a first degree AV block. So the only two that we're between now is accelerated idioventricular and accelerated junctional. So idioventricular, remember, is like an escape rhythm if you have too slow of a heartbeat. Accelerated junctional rhythm is where the rhythm is coming from the junction itself. So when I look at this, I think that this is an accelerated idioventricular rhythm. Let's see what they think. Nope, so it's the accelerated junctional. So the two of them are kind of difficult to discern when you're looking at just one strip of an EKG. You have, I don't know whether this looks like maybe a lead 2, but basically the difference between them is you want to look and see what the P wave deflection, if you have a P wave, because remember, if it starts from the junction and you send a signal superiorly into the heart, into the atria, and inferiorly into the ventricles, you'll have an inverted P wave, but your QRS complex will look the same. So you kind of need to have a multiple view approach. I like to have a multiple view approach when I diagnose that. So it's kind of a tricky one. I would recommend reading up on it and seeing if you can find some 12-lead EKGs to kind of diagnose that. That usually helps. So the next one, let's take a look here. So obviously there's something pathologically wrong with this patient. So what do you think's going on? So let's look. What's our rate? Well, it's slow. Let's just call it that. Slow to non-existent. Rhythm. Well, obviously it's not very regular. These are very sick QRS complexes. Let's see what they are. So yeah, 0.27. That's real long. That's not good. Is there P waves? Well, there's a P wave here, P wave here, P wave here, and here, and here. So we know our P waves are working. So right away we can rule out some things. So let's look. It's not VFib. There's no, back and forth things going on here. It's not PVCs. It's not tachycardia or torsades. It's not a second degree block because remember, with second degree type 2, you have just random QRS complexes that drop, but this is a pretty sustained drop of QRS complexes. It's not WPW. We don't have any delta waves here, so I'm pretty sure this is a third degree AV block. That's correct. So remember, with a third degree AV block, the P waves and the QRS complexes are completely dissociated from each other, if any of them actually get through. So I think these are actually just some escape rhythms that are starting to occur. So remember what we call escape rhythms, the idioventricular rhythms. So they're typically going to be very slow, however, not this slow. So this is abnormal. So that's why I would go with the third degree over the idioventricular. Here we have, this patient is also sick. Let's take a look at what we think is going on. So what's our rhythm or our rate? Well, rate's irregular. Rhythm, I have no idea what's going on here. This is not, we have a couple QRS complexes that seem to be regular as far as in their rate, but then we get up here and we have this, bigeminal QRS complex. It's got the little rabbit peaks. And then we have these PVCs, down here. So let's see what we think what's going on here. It's not WPW. We don't have any delta waves. It's not supraventricular tachycardia. This isn't a tachycardia if we look 300, 150, 175. It's not that. It's not a first degree AV block. I don't see any P waves that are triggering anything. PVC trigeminy. I don't think it would be safe. Well, I think maybe they're looking over here, trying to figure out what this is going on. I'm going to go with a ventricular tachycardia because the rule is if you have so many PVCs in a row, that's constituting it counts as a ventricular tachycardia. To diagnose a trigeminy, you kind of need to. Well, let's see here. Yeah, to diagnose a trigeminy, you need to have so many regular beats. You need to have 2 regular beats for every QRS or every PVC. So I'm going to go with a ventricular tachycardia. Let's take a look. That's correct. So I'm pretty sure they're talking about this area down here and not over here. I think this is the regular rhythm that kind of slips into the PVCs and the V-tach. That would be my best explanation for this rhythm. So this also is a sick patient. What do you think's going on here? So what's our rate? Is it regular or irregular? Well, this is an irregular rate. Rhythm, it's also irregular. We have these kind of a, irregular rhythm is what they like to say for this diagnosis. If that doesn't give it away yet, you remember that sometimes that's buzzword for this rhythm is it's called irregularly irregular. We have a whole bunch of what looks like P waves that are just kind of randomly occurring. We have P waves in front of the QRS complexes. Yep, so that's right. So let's look over here and see what's going on. Is this a tachycardia? Nope. We can get rid of that. This is a slow, regular rhythm. First degree AV block? Nope. We don't have a regular P wave to QRS complex. WPW? No, we don't really have any delta waves here. Is this a premature junctional contraction? No. Accelerated junctional rhythm? Well, it's not accelerated because, remember, it's not from the junction. This is actually atrial fibrillation. If you ever hear irregularly irregular, think atrial fibrillation. The reason why it's irregular is, remember, the atria are just kind of contracting just really rapidly and irregularly like a bag of worms. And every once in a while, you'll get a QRS complex to fire off of that. And so that's why it's kind of irregular. You don't have a systemic or a systemetric firing of the ventricles from the atria. What's going on here? So this looks like a sawtooth rhythm. Does it not? It looks like a saw. Here's your saw teeth. So if I say sawtooth rhythm, what's the first thing that pops in your head? Ventricular tachycardia. Correct. So, not WPW. We don't have any delta waves. It's not a junctional rhythm. It's not sinus tachycardia because there's no P waves. It's not a first degree block. We don't have any QRS complexes. And it's not a junctional escape rhythm because this is too fast. This is V-tach, ventricular tachycardia. It's monomorphic, remember, because they all look the same. It's a monomorphic rhythm, which means all these QRS complexes are going to look identical. And then the rhythm is going to be occurring from one location. That's what that means. All right, so what's going on here? What's our rate? Is it regular or irregular? So this looks like a regular rhythm and a regular rate, except for this little area here. So let's count out here. 300, 150, 100, 75. So this is a 75, so this is a normal rate. Rhythm, P wave in front of every QRS. Yeah, looks like that. QRS, how wide is it? Let's check. .08, that's a good QRS. So mainly all we're concerned about is this area right here. So what could cause that? Well, is this a PVC? I don't see any PVCs down here. Is this tachycardia? We already ruled out it's not tachycardia. Wandering atrial pacemaker. Well, this isn't that because our atria are, they're firing constantly. They're not irregular. So this is not a wandering atrial pacemaker. Normal sinus, well, yeah, it's normal except for this area right here, so I'm not going to go with normal sinus. Is this a tachycardia? We already ruled that out, so it must be a sinoatrial block, which is the correct answer. So an SA block is where the SA node, sometimes the signal doesn't get captured by the atria. Remember, all the EKG is looking at is the depolarization of the muscle tissue of the atria and the ventricles. It doesn't look at anything with the with the AV node or the SA node. It's only muscle depolarization. All right, we'll do a couple more here. So, what's going on with this patient? Take a look. Let me pause it. I need to get a drink of water here. I think I can pause it. Okay. So sorry, I had to get a drink of water. We look back at our EKG strip, and we know that this rhythm, does it look regular or irregular? So I would say this is an irregular rhythm. Rate looks to be normal, around 75. Remember 300, 150, 100. I guess 100, my bad. It's a little early in the morning. We can check it down here, 300, 150, 100. So it is a little fast, right on the border of around tachycardia, so around 100 or so. That's not a big deal. That's not our main concern. So let's check, is it regular or irregular? So remember we said it was irregular. We kind of have this area right here where it's going from a rate of 100 to around a rate of 125 or so. It looks like this beat kind of skips, doesn't it? Let's check our P waves. P wave for every QRS. Yep. That looks good. QRS complex. That looks like it's a healthy, nice and short complex. So let's click and check it. Looks to be 0.08, so we know that's healthy. So what's going on with this patient? Well, let's look at our P waves here. So this P wave looks normal. This one looks like this one. This one looks like this one. However, when we look at this P wave here compared to this P wave here, there's a difference, isn't there? This one right here almost looks like it's a kind of like a sinusoidal, maybe. It has a little slight downward dip first, and then it comes up, and the upward deflection isn't as big as this one back here. So whenever you see an abnormal P wave like this and a abnormal rate, you want to think of a PAC, which is a premature atrial contraction, and that's what this one actually is. Yeah, that's correct. All right, we'll do one more, and then I'll call this video completed, and maybe we'll do another one if you guys like these. You seem to like all the other ones I've done, so. Well, I'll do another one. We already have done this one. We'll just skip this. How about that? Everybody knows what that is, right? That's asystole, which means without systolic contraction. All right, what is going on here? Let's take a look. So, what do you think, or what do you guys see in this patient? First, is the rhythm regular or irregular? So I think this rhythm, it looks to be pretty regular. How about the rate? Let's check a rate. So we kind of have to fudge it. It's between the two boxes. So let's go 300, 150, 100, 75. So rate is normal. It's not tachycardic. Right around 75. We have P waves. Yep, P wave for every QRS. That looks good. The QRS complexes, they look to be thin. That's healthy. So let's look at our PR interval here. This looks kind of long, doesn't it? We already had one of these before. So what is it called when you have an abnormally elongated PR interval? Anybody know? I hope you are saying first degree AV block, because that is the correct answer. Remember, when your PR interval is greater than 0.2 seconds, I'm sorry, yes, 0.2 seconds. Let's see if we can measure this and see how long it is. This one looks to be around like 0.27 or so. You can do that by counting, or know that by counting the boxes after you get some experience. 0.24, okay. So it's still elongated, and that's not healthy. That's a first degree AV block. Let's do one more that we haven't seen. All right, so what do we think's going on here? We've already had this one too, haven't we? This is, remember, an SA block, because we have this abnormal period of asystole. Remember that? All right, let's hope we haven't seen this one before. Ah, good. All right, so this is a funky looking rhythm strip, is it not? So we have these weird looking doohickeys, and they're occurring after every single QRS complex, and they look to be identical as far as from this one to this one to this one. So let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's go and look. So we have a P wave in front of every QRS complex. Or let's even step back even more. What is our rate? Is it regular or irregular? Well, I'm not going to bother to count because it looks to be an irregular rate, right? Rhythm, well, we already know that this is messed up, so we're trying to figure out what's going on here. Let's look at the P wave. We have a P wave for every QRS, yeah. Is this a QRS complex? No, this is not. I won't tell you what it's called yet. How about this? P-wave QRS, that's good. P-wave QRS, that's good. QRS complex looks to be nice and skinny. PR interval looks to be nice and short, so we know that's healthy. So mainly we need to figure out what the heck is going on here. So this is what they call a premature ventricular contraction. So it's a PVC, and this is kind of, everybody has PVCs, it's normal. It's kind of what you get when you have that little thump in your heart. You feel your heart skip a beat. That's a PVC. Okay, so now we need to determine whether or not a PVC here is called a bigeminy or a trigeminy. Well, there's only one option here. This is bigeminy. So what bigeminy means is that for every PVC, you have one abnormal, I'm sorry, for every QRS complex, you have a PVC. So it's kind of like normal QRS, then a PVC. Normal QRS, then a PVC. When we have trigeminy, that means we have normal QRS, PVC. Normal QRS, PVC. So that means every third beat is a PVC. So that's trigeminy. This is called bigeminy, so we're going to select that answer and be told that we are correct. Otherwise, I might need to rethink my medical career, right, guys? And the website's kind of slow today. By the way, if you guys are interested in this website, it's if you just Google practiceclinicalskills.com, that's what this website is from, and it's giving us an error. Excellent. Well, let's see. I had good luck with it earlier today, so I'm sorry that we're having some issues here. Let's see what it does. Yeah, it's I think the site just kind of had a little hiccup, but so that was a ventricular bigeminy PVC rhythm. So that's essentially all those rhythms that we looked at today. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email or a message, and I am pretty good about getting back to all the any questions that I have. So, by the way, this is not asystole. I'm not sure. I think I must have clicked on it by accident. This is a let's see here. This is a ventricular fibrillation, just in case you were like, what the heck? That's not asystole. So, yeah, shoot me an email if you got any questions. Why is this saying it's not VFib? I'm not sure what's going on here. Maybe I don't agree with that, but that's okay. So they're saying that this looks like a coarse ventricular fibrillation. However, when you get over here farther, looks like you have more of a defined, not really defined, but a defined rhythm. They're saying that it's a polymorphic tachycardia. So remember, when it's polymorphic, it means the rhythm is occurring or beginning from more than one area in the heart. So it looks like this is one area here, then it switches, and then it switches again. So I don't agree, but that's what they're going to call it. So anyway, shoot me an email if you have any questions. Again, I'll make it back to you. And be sure to check out my other videos. And if you guys like what you see, leave a comment, and I will see if I can make some more for you guys. So thanks.